Well, another Sunday, another verses, another romance-themed verses, and the first verses of this month that has nothing to do with an Academy Award. As a matter of fact, the closest thing we could find here were they were nominated for MTV Movie Awards. But there was a time, long time ago, it seems like forever ago, that Adam Sandler was actually funny. And this is a battle of a movie that I absolutely love, that is one of his best performances ever. I love the Robbie Hart character, I always have, for obvious reasons, if you know me well enough. And I really like 50 First Dates, so this is going to be a nice battle of when Adam Sandler was funny. Like to have done this for when Blended came out to connect, but nope, not this time around. So let's see what happens when The Wedding Singer faces off against 50 First Dates. Take it away, AJ.
Well, usually we put stuff up against each other when they have something like in common, particularly plot-wise. The fact that it's Sandler and Drew Barrymore are pretty much the only.
Yep. That is the only thing.
And they have a love and something is keeping them apart. Whether it be douchebag Matthew Glave, aka Glenn Guglia, or brain damage.
And not the indie worker either. Literal brain damage.
But yeah, it is very nostalgic to look back on good Adam Sandler movies.
No lie. It's been a long time.
50 First Dates doesn't feel like that long ago, but then I remember it's like 10 years old.
Yeah.
It's
crazy.
So,
We've had good Adam Sandler, but everyone doesn't seem to agree.
So, anyway, to get started, I think I'm going to start with, I'll start with 50 First Dates, actually. It's kind of, I can't believe this. This is never going to happen again, so good thing it's documented on video.
Oh boy.
I'm about to say this. Are you ready? This is an Adam Sandler movie whose plot is kind of ingenious.
Yeah.
Because, and it's somehow perfectly set up for a romantic comedy. Despite how kind of an odd concept it is. It's like, okay, yeah, you could say it kind of rips off While You Were Sleeping a little bit. But it's able to set itself up for more original things.
True.
Because it never, believe it or not, any Sandler movie would do this now, but this movie never strays from its concept. All the way to the very end. Even the ending doesn't cop out. Actually, it does in a little way, but we'll gradually get there. It was kind of somewhat the start of something bad, though, that kept going.
Yeah.
Unless I'm missing a movie that happened before this. 50 First Dates was kind of the start of that, that totally unbelievable self-serving thing that everybody hates Adam Sandler for now, which is playing himself up as this desirable ladies' man.
Yeah.
Which he is not.
Wow, you really changed your wording there, I have a feeling.
Well, okay, so we actually start with him, and we see it's a clever little montage. It's all these women talking about this great guy that they spent a weekend in Hawaii with. Yeah. But it's somebody with like this extravagant job. And of course they're all talking about the same guy. And there's that really funny moment where they're all saying his name at the same time, and for some reason there's a shot of Kevin James in there.
Of course there is.
Which kind of, I guess, is kind of
foreshadowing.
Foreshadowing, yes, for when Sandler was getting worse. A lot worse, but this was kind of the start of that, I think. Even though he kind of counters it with a comment in the middle of the movie that's funny, where they're driving Lucy out to the doctor, and they're telling her about her condition, stuff like that, and they're talking about their relationship, and she's asking, like, do we have sex and stuff like that, and then she says, so you're my boyfriend, and his response is, yep. Sorry, I'm not better looking.
Yeah. Self-loathing Adam Sandler.
Yeah, which is weird since this was basically the start of him thinking that women could believably be all over him.
Bedtime Stories is a good example.
And the fact that in the Grown-Ups movies he's married to fucking Selma Hayek.
Yeah.
Or there's just a countless number of them.
Indeed.
But anyway, and that's basically his thing. He's this sleazy guy that bangs tourists and makes up all this stuff. But then he finds his heart when he meets one girl. But normally that would be tired and annoying and cliche. But there's something about this movie that kind of makes it play out, I won't say completely believably, because there is... I just have trouble buying around the middle of the movie when they start to... the relationship starts to really take off when she has the... First they have to tell her the incident when she accidentally finds out.
Mm.
Then they do the video thing where they show her history of everything that's happened. Then she starts making a journal and she starts using that. How comfortable they get with each other seems a little unbelievable after a while. Because even though it tries to build on the thing of she kind of remembers him, but then it's revealed at the end that she just doesn't. So it makes it kind of weird, the way their relationship... I mean, she talks about the whole, I have dreams about you and shit, but... it's... in what is a really great concept that they do take in a lot of good directions, I always had trouble buying the whole, how their relationship managed to progress and seemed to get more close as it went. I would think it would always be weird.
Yeah.
I don't know. And what's great about this is, okay, another thing. It's basically me talking about how much better it is than Sandler's recent movies.
No issue with that.
But what happens here is, what's good about this plot is, this is a really creepy, evil thing to do. To basically make her, use her situation to make her fall in love with you every day.
Yeah.
Especially when a lot of those times end up in her getting hurt. Emotionally. But at the very beginning, they kind of set it up to where his character is aware of this. Because it's Rob Schneider's character that's talking about it. And Sandler actually says the words, I'm not going to do that because it's evil and completely psychotic.
Yeah.
Despite the fact that he convinces himself to do it anyway. So, hello Dallas Buyers Club poster that I keep hitting. But something about the movie just works despite all this stuff. I don't know if it's the likable characters, because if he made this movie today, it would be really ugly and unappealing, and just... That's My Boy had incest in it, I mean, you know?
Yeah.
But they managed to make this movie that has a really good heart in it, and knows, the problems in its concept and theory. But, yeah, and of course, like all Sandler movies, you have the side characters.
Yeah.
I guess the first one worth mentioning is Doug, who is Sean Astin, who is her brother that is on steroids and has a lisp.
Yeah.
And that's a really funny performance. And there's plenty of running jokes with him, like the titty dance and the wet dreams. There's also, her dad's a really good character too. It's Blake Clark, who I think this is like the first time he didn't play Farmer Fran in a Sandler movie. Or no, Little Nicky was before this. But anyway, then you have this character who's this is more Sandler-esque. It's one of those characters where the gender is unknown. And we never get a full idea. It's an actress, though. The actress is a woman, but they very convincingly make her gender hard to distinguish.
Yes.
And there are funny moments that come from that, despite it being a typically un-PC Sandler bit. Just because. This was back when that didn't matter, though. To give them the benefit of the doubt.
Yeah.
Alan Covert. Alan Covert makes quite an impression when he's on the screen for 30 seconds. He plays a character named 10-Second Tom who loses his memory literally every 10 seconds.
Yeah.
And he keeps introducing himself over and over again. So, and you have the people at the diner, and you have Schneider and all that. Schneider's character is Schneider's character is not as annoying as other Rob Schneider characters, depending on how much of him you can take. I don't think Schneider's that bad, so...
I've always liked him. I liked him in SNL.
Yeah.
And Deuce Bigelow.
So, the first Deuce Bigelow.
Yeah.
And no further. But there's something this movie has that he just doesn't have anymore. And there's just not only does it take this concept and it's able to do creative things with it and make the story go on and take you in directions that you are like you don't expect her to find out as early as you do. And it's you kind of think the whole movie is going to be one thing and then has to go into another thing and then it goes into one more thing. It's actually interesting the way it manages to unfold. Because this is the type of movie that could have grown really tired really fast. Because it's also got a lot of, it's like While You Were Sleeping meets Groundhog Day is what it is. Basically.
Yeah. That's a really good comparison, too.
And the writing is actually really well. Not just the concepts, but the writing itself, the dialogue. Like, let's see, like the one thing, okay, here's one line. And it seems like a really minor line, and just, an easy line or whatever, but I thought about it when I watched it recently, and I was thinking about it. I never thought much of this line before, I never really did, but at the very beginning, when he's talking about working for, like, the CIA and being a secret agent, and he's trying to convince that girl, so she'll go away, and he can't remember her name. He calls her Lisa, and her name is Linda. And when she corrects him, he says, "I know, I changed your name for your protection." I stopped to think about that very small line, and I thought, I don't think... This was at the very beginning of the movie, too, and it's just such a throwaway line. Mm. I don't think any Sandler movies nowadays could come up with a line that clever.
No.
So... I just don't think he has it in him anymore. Of course, it's worth noting he writes most of his movies nowadays. This was a whole other writer named... Sorry, I don't remember your name off the top of my head. George Wing. Bring this guy back. It's worth noting this movie is the reason that I saw... It's weird to think of now because I see so many movies. I saw 50 First Dates before I saw The Sixth Sense. And obviously one of the plot points of 50 First Dates is that they know the plot of The Sixth Sense and they have to watch the movie every single day.
Yeah.
And act surprised every time. That's where the whole ingenious thing of it comes from. Because it's going to tear her apart every day to learn that she has brain damage and can't remember anything. So they just recreate the same day over and over again to make it feel like nothing is different. And they go through all the things. They even go through the detail of refilling the shampoo bottle every day. Her dad has the birthday party. His present is The Sixth Sense. They have to watch The Sixth Sense. It's the same thing every night. She paints the wall in the shed, and then they have to paint it white all over again. It's just a really good concept, and it was really well thought out. Really impressive for a Sandler movie. Yeah. It's mind-blowing almost. So that's another bad habit that this kind of sparked with Sandler that's really bad nowadays is product placement. I was going to talk about the Spam and the Reese Cups, which is just a funny little joke in this, but now it's out of control in his movies. His movies are basically commercials now.
Yeah.
So, and it's also interesting how we don't know how the day is going to go, because sometimes she falls for him and sometimes she's appalled by him. So... yeah, this movie works on a lot of levels. It does have problems, though, because it has... this is something that Wedding Singer does well that 50 First Dates fails with. The Sandler humor still kind of comes out, and it seems misplaced. Mm. Like, The Wedding Singer is kind of a pure romantic comedy with, very rarely throws in a Sandler-y thing.
Yeah.
50 First Dates has a problem where it's like a couple right in a row at the end. You have you have the scene where he shows up, and we have this really serious scene. Like, it's really, it's a surprisingly deep scene that kind of, like, hits you in the heart when it happens. Because he's under the impression that Lucy remembers who he is, and it's this big epiphany. So, he turns the boat around, and he goes after her, and he runs into the institution, and he says, "Do you know who I am?" And she says, "No." And then she says, "I have to show you something," and they leave the room.
Mm.
That's a really heavy moment there. But we detour for 30 seconds to focus on these guys that are painting.
Mm-hmm.
And one of them convinces the other guy that he's Picasso, and then he says no, and the guy says, like he thinks he's painted this big work of art, and then we see it, and it's just like a stick figure that's wearing a hat. And he says, "God, I suck." It's like, wow, that was Sandler right in the middle of this deep moment.
Yeah.
And then they felt the need to wear out their joke from the other scene, where they have the big moment where she talks about how she knows who he is, even if she doesn't remember him. And they have the big romantic, they're going to be together, they're going to try this. And he talks about how she tore the pages out of her journal that had to do with him. And she realizes that. And just as this big romantic moment happens, 10-second Tom walks into the room and introduces himself again. Which doesn't make any sense, because he was nowhere in the vicinity of anywhere, and that would basically be saying that he, who has no memory of anything whatsoever for more than 10 seconds, randomly walks into rooms and introduces himself. I know that's probably overthinking it, but it was a totally pointless thing to have in the scene. And it throws it off. And it's very... Something tells me Sandler threw that. Anything wrong with 50 First Dates makes me think Sandler threw it in at the last minute. Sorry, but that's just the way it goes.
It's like bagging on Sandler today.
Yeah, well...
We're about to put him over, though.
He brings it on himself.
Yeah, as much as I hate to say it, it's true.
So yeah, like I said, 50 First Dates is so good it doesn't feel like a Sandler movie. So, So there's that. Now we'll go on to The Wedding Singer.
Yes.
Like I said, The Wedding Singer is kind of less Sandler-y and more straightforward romantic comedy. Like, more the kind of thing you'd actually see in a normal version. It's only better.
Yes.
With more appealing characters, and it's better written, and it has better developments that aren't quite as predictable. I mean, it's still, a romantic comedy. You know exactly where it's going to go, but there's one thing that did really right, but the first thing we'll talk about is the setting. Basically, this movie's main joke is the fact that it's set in 1985. So pretty much there's got to be a joke like every 2 minutes that refers to the fact that it's 1985. And most of the time that works. Sometimes it's subtle, sometimes it's blatant. Like there's the, when the kid's running around in a Freddy Krueger mask and the glove.
Mm.
And he's talking about, obviously, Nightmare on Elm Street was 84. And I think 85 was when Freddy's Revenge came out, so it would have been like when he was like really blowing up, so it makes sense that children are playing with Freddy Krueger toys.
Mm.
And then you have the great moment where, I don't know if they got this right or not, but I'm going to assume they did, because I don't know anything about 80s TV, of course. You have Robbie's brother-in-law, who is the guy from Goodfellas, in an amazing bit of casting. And they're getting ready to leave, and he's off screen, and he's stalling, and we don't know what's keeping him. And she's telling him to move his ass, and we hear him in the distance say, "Hang on, I'm watching Dallas. I think JR might be dead or something. They shot him."
That's awesome.
And then you have Billy Idol's really popular, which makes no sense, because when we see Billy Idol at the end of the movie, he's 1998 Billy Idol.
Yeah, exactly.
But
still looking like the Sandman.
We're still in 1985. It's whatever. It's like the casting in Man on the Moon. So
yeah.
But anyway, the movie has a great opening, like immediately, where it really you spin me right around number, but the whole wedding at the beginning with the Buscemi cameo.
Yes.
They do this great musical opening, and then Robbie introduces the groom's drunk brother, David. And here comes Buscemi spilling onto the stage in his fucking 80s tuxedo.
Yeah.
And he's uncredited, too. Which, by SAG standards, means, yes, Buscemi did what he's doing right now for free. That's why they couldn't put his name in the credits.
Wow.
And of course he comes back at the end because he's in the band for some reason. Buscemi's cameo in this movie is amazing. It's like, if I hated this movie for some reason, I would tell you to watch it anyway just for Buscemi's cameo.
Yeah.
The whole thing where he's on the stage and he talks about how they're going to be divorced in a year, and he takes the alcohol glass and he hits the cymbal, grabs the guitar and makes a scene. But the cherry on top of this scene is Robbie takes the kid out back to puke, and he has his heart-to-heart with Julia, meeting her for the first time, and you know something's going to blossom. And then he's taking the kid inside, and Buscemi comes stumbling around the corner just from out of nowhere.
Yeah.
And he's like, don't worry, I'll take care of this. And he just shoos Buscemi away, and Buscemi does the howl, and then he falls off the step and gives up and walks away. Buscemi's cameo alone makes this movie worth watching. Now that I have that out of the way, I've always wondered if Buscemi might have been that kid's dad. Because the kid was obviously neglected enough that he strayed away and managed to get his hands on a lot of alcohol. And then when Buscemi first sees him, he says, don't worry, I'll take care of this.
Yeah.
I think that kid was with him.
It's possible.
So I don't know what became of that, but that's always been my theory.
That works.
Okay, but anyway, the movie itself, now that I've gushed about Buscemi. Yeah, the movie is your average romantic comedy, but it has a lot worrying. Like I said, it has every single plot detail. It's got, they each have the best friend. In Julia's case, it's her cousin, who's Christine Taylor. And in Robbie has the best friend, who is Sammy the limo driver, who's Alan Covert, who's fucking hilarious in this movie, too. Because Sammy is very much stuck in the time period. He shows up to the dinner with the Michael Jackson jacket and the glove. He's obsessed with Fonzie, and I've forgotten Travolta's name on Welcome Back, Kotter. Barbarino.
Yeah, the new Barbarino.
Because he said that's another thing that sets the setting, is the great scene where they're talking about Fonzie and Barbarino not being relevant anymore. And he said, you know what happened to them? He's talking about their shows getting canceled, and Robbie says, well, I know Fonzie's a director now, and Barbarino did that Mechanical Bull movie. I don't know, I haven't seen it yet.
Yeah, that was funny.
Despite the fact that shows that Robbie's behind on the times, because Urban Cowboy's like 1981, so Robbie's 4 years behind on that. And Henry Winkler directed Night Shift in 1982. Oh my god, I feel stupid. That was Ron Howard.
Yeah.
Henry Winkler did direct a lot of low-key stuff, though. Henry Winkler's the star of Night Shift. That's what confused me. Oh, fuck that. Okay. So anyway, but this movie does a lot with what it has, despite having all the cliches there. Of course, he's going to fall in love with the engaged girl. Of course, the guy the girl's engaged to is going to be a cheating douchebag.
Yeah.
Of course, there's going to be a misunderstanding where they get mad at each other. And of course, there's going to be the moment where he confesses his love to her, and there's a lot of misunderstandings in this movie.
Yeah.
There's the scene where Robbie's a douchebag to her because he knows that Glenn's cheating, but he doesn't want to tell her. He just goes off on that Glenn's a douchebag, and she thinks he's being an asshole. She literally calls him an asshole.
Yeah.
That's how I know that. And then he decides that he's going to get back with Linda because he is hurt. So of course, she comes. No, it's reversed. He's gonna go to Julia's house and confess his love to her, and he sees her in the window, happy in her wedding dress. Of course, she's fantasizing about being married to Raleigh, but he doesn't know that. He thinks she's thinking about Glenn. And she has a nervous breakdown because she realized her name is going to be Julia Gooley. So he goes and he gets drunk, and he gets back with Linda for a night. She goes to his house, and Linda answers the door, and wearing nothing but his Van Halen t-shirt. That's another thing. Before you get out of my Van Halen t-shirt, before you jinx the band and they break up.
Yeah.
Then Julia gets on the plane, and then he learns that, and all that. It is tiresome when you think about all the cliches that are in it, but the movie still handles itself really well. And has plenty of comedic stuff without doing... There are occasional moments of Sandler's frat boy sense of humor.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot of Sandler yelling, but a lot of it is actually funny. Like his delivery of Yesterday when he's screaming at Linda about her not showing up at the wedding. The Kill Me song, of course, is like a classic in itself.
Yes.
That's where you get your PG-13 F-bomb. I guess I should mention that this is what's considered the unrated version. Which basically does not mean that it has raunchier footage, it just means that it has a scene in it that wasn't in the movie when the movie went through the MPAA's rating system, so it can't actually be considered rated. That's the only reason why. That's the secret of releasing DVDs unrated. That's why they're called that.
Interesting.
The one scene that they feature is, you'll remember in the montage of them going around doing all the wedding stuff, like testing the cake and Sammy going around the parking cones and them trying on the dresses and all that. There's a shot of Robbie and Julia talking. In the background, Rosie is like lifting weights. That's actually a whole deleted scene in itself that's in this unrated version. That's the only thing they added. The scene's only like a minute long.
Wow.
And he gives her another chance to be the, she's funny because she's an old woman saying dirty things. I guess they couldn't get Cloris Leachman. So, she's also the woman that's in Ready to Rumble.
Yes.
So, well, the movie does overcome its cliches by just being appealing and romantic in itself. And it's got a lot of those interesting, like, the romantic stuff really does hit hard, and that's what makes it what it is.
Yeah.
And the comedy is really funny.
Definitely.
So the cliches are buried by how good it takes the two genres it's trying to be and makes them work. And there are a couple of really great things. There's one thing that's actually really cool when you think about it. I never noticed it for a while, and then when I realized it, and I actually looked it up later, and it actually is on purpose. The scene towards the beginning where he's been dumped by Linda, and their wedding cake is still in the kitchen. And Sammy points out that the bride's missing, and that's because Robbie took it off, and he's like hanging out with it and looking at it depressed like. The bride that was on top of the cake for he and Linda's wedding looks like Julia.
Nice.
Because it's got her short blonde hair that stops here. And the scene where after Linda's left and he gets depressed and he throws the bride into the yard and we focus on it and then it dissolves into a scene. It's the bride laying in the yard and it dissolves into a scene with Julia.
Nice.
The scene where we meet Glenn. While we're on the topic, let's talk about Matthew Glave. Even though he's this repulsive, just horribly unlikable character, Glenn is a hilarious character.
Yeah.
He's obsessed with Miami Vice.
Yeah, he is.
He wears the Don Johnson clothes. He drives around in the Lamborghini that's white.
Yeah.
And when you lift the car door, he's just constantly blaring the Miami Vice theme.
Yeah.
I think we're supposed to assume on a loop.
Yeah, because that's an audio cassette. There's no way that... See, this takes place in the 80s, so it was an audio cassette right there.
This repulsive piece of shit is such a great character.
That's a great way to put it, too.
The grade A top choice made, and I love when they're on the plane at the end. He doesn't know they're on the same plane, and the disgusted flight attendant comes in, and she says, "I was just hit on by this this creeping coach who's dressed like Don Johnson," and that's when it occurs to him. And then the grade A top choice made thing, but he knew it at the Don Johnson remark. Alright. And of course, it's filled with these great scenes. That's another thing that helps. Like the John Lovett scene that goes into the please kill me scene.
Yes.
And the where he starts doing it's this clever little plot detail where he can't do weddings anymore because he's too heartbroken.
Yeah.
And we have the whole scene where he sings Love Stinks and the cops end up getting called.
I love that scene.
I love her delivery of when he's laying in the dumpster hiding, he says, "Is everybody gone now?" And just really sweetly she says, "Most people, there's still a couple of people left and some cops who are still interviewing some witnesses." There is the plot detail is since he can't do weddings anymore, he starts doing bar mitzvahs.
Yeah.
And we have the whole scene where she dances with the fat kid he played Bruce in Matilda. Apparently he's like really thin now, but that's what he was back then. He was known for being Bruce in Matilda and this kid in The Wedding Singer.
Wow.
I don't even know his real name off the top of my head. And yeah, but the thing that was always weird to me was I know all groups of coworkers tend to form this little group of friends.
Mm-hmm.
Because everybody has a particular job at weddings. Because Robbie is the wedding singer. You have Holly and Julia who are waitresses, and you have Sammy who is the limo driver after the ceremony. And since they all go to weddings together, they're all kind of this friend group.
Yeah.
There's really no. You can't show every detail of their friendship and how it builds because you have to make an hour-and-a-half movie. So it's fine. I'm just saying I think it's interesting that 1 minute it's Julia's first day, and then the next scene, they're the group of friends. Because he's walking away sad, and she says, "I'm having an engagement party, and I really want you and Sammy to come." And it's like, how the fuck does she know who Sammy is?
Yeah.
I guess enough time has passed that they've worked together that they're suddenly all a group of friends now. So that's the case. George, too. George hangs out with them. Alexis Arquette, who is... we're going to get a little politically correct here, I guess. Alexis Arquette is... Alexis Arquette is now physically a woman.
Mm-hmm.
And has been for a few years. What does that say about the jokes about Georgia and the Wedding Singer now when you watch them? Is it still okay?
I don't know.
Because that's George's whole storyline, is that he's doing the Boy George thing and people kind of are freaked out by his presence.
Yeah.
No, there's the great running joke with the song, and Robbie's still outside, so they just play the song again, and the audience starts to turn on him and the guy screaming "You suck" is United, which I'm pretty sure is the guy's in all his movies, and I can't remember the tall guy.
Yeah.
The guy, ironically enough, the guy that had the sex change in 50 First Dates, that joke. But yeah, long story short, what makes The Wedding Singer work is it does have those Sandler-isms, but for the most part, it's really romantic when it needs to be, and it's really funny when it needs to be. And that's all that matters.
Yeah. And
it does it so well that I actually, of these two, I would choose The Wedding Singer.
Definitely.
Yeah. That's actually, I really, really talked up 50 First Dates.
You did.
But this was never a contest.
No, I didn't think it was.
The Wedding Singer is like a classic now, basically.
Yes.
A 90s classic, I guess. And 50 First Dates is, I think, generally well-liked.
Got a great soundtrack, too.
And like I said,
They both do.
It's really got its great things about it, but just The Wedding Singer is The Wedding Singer.
Yeah.
Everybody's seen it, everybody loves it. For very good reason.
And most people that have ever seen it can identify with the story.
Yeah, and I can't believe that's, like I said, that's just the ultimate cliche. That's everybody's story at one point or another.
Yeah.
So, yeah, this was never a competition at all, of course.
No.
Because this was back when, you know, this was always before Punch Drunk Love came out, and of course, you know, there's people that hate Punch Drunk Love, of course. The Wedding Singer is generally considered his best movie.
Mm-hmm.
So, you know, even above Billy Madison and Happy Gilmore.
And most of the world turned on Funny People. They didn't give it a chance.
Yeah, they thought it was too long and too dramatic.
I love Funny People.
They were shocked that a movie called Funny People was dramatic. I remember when I first saw The Wedding Singer, I was like, I think I was 7. And I got it because my dad made a deal with me. This was back when Sandler was like the bee's knees. Like, every single thing about Sandler just had to be seen.
I remember this.
Billy Madison and Happy Gilmore had blown up and everything was amazing.
Yeah.
I had to get straight A's on my report card in order to go see The Wedding Singer. And I did.
Good job. Good work, my friend.
Yeah. And it was like a huge deal.
Yeah.
So, yeah. And even as, like, and it's one of those things where even when I was like 7 and I didn't give a fuck about romanticism, because that, you know, you're 7, that's back when girls are still yucky.
Yeah, exactly.
The movie I still loved this, even when I saw it when I was 7, despite the fact that it's a very romantic movie.
Yeah.
I think the thought just didn't occur to me. I was just focused on the, I knew the movie was PG-13 and everybody could go see it, and you always wait for that one moment where you're allowed to say fuck in a PG-13 movie.
Yes.
One of the best uses of fuck in a PG-13 movie is in The Wedding Singer. When it's during the Please Kill Me song, of course.
Yes.
I love watching it on, actually I don't because you missed that, but it's very clever when you watch the edited for TV version, and it's amplifier feedback when he says shit or fuck.
That's great. Very useful too.
So that's pretty much those.
Well, we've been talking it up for a while, and it's one we've been wanting to do for a little bit, and Friday is a big day here on Versus. We are actually taking 2 very iconic romantic movies and putting them against each other.
Pretty much the romantic.
It is the quintessential romance movies are getting put up against each other. And that's actually going to be on this Friday. And we're actually doing a regular Versus on the 16th, on Sunday, which is going to be an interesting one. And then we're going to end on the final one on February 23rd. And that'll be the end of romance theme. And we'll just go back to a hodgepodge of whatevs for the rest of the year. Until October, which is horror themed yet again, because we've got that all planned. So, AJ, any parting words?
I got that.